Hey guys, Ben Sliwa here. Thought I'd share with you guys a little story I was thinking about today. 3 years ago, this very day, which happened to be a weekend back then, me and Mike Riendeau, check out his channel. We went to high school together, went to college together. Still keep in good touch. We have kids that are like 2 months apart. It's pretty sweet. We used to go on all kinds of adventures all the time. One adventure, we were exploring Geauga Lake amusement park. For those who aren't familiar with Geauga Lake, it was a theme park in northeastern Ohio, in Aurora, more specifically, that opened up in like 1887, finally closed in 2007, 130 years later. And the park itself is nuts because it went from being just like your run-of-the-mill, typical turn-of-the-century theme park with, your mosaic pools and your real low roller coasters and your standard rides, and you're more of an environment people just go to this summer to sit by a lake and check it out. Then it exploded in like the 1960s and became a huge thing of like huge roller coasters and all that. And then from there, it went on to just being like the biggest theme park like in the United States or the world or something like that in like the 90s and early 2000s. It was nuts. And then a lot of people refer to Cedar Point. Cedar Point is in Sandusky, Ohio, which is like an hour difference between Geauga Lake and where Geauga Lake was and Cedar Point is. And Cedar Fair, who owns Cedar Point, bought Geauga Lake. Anyway, and they found it to be taking away revenue from Cedar Point, so they shut it down. After 130 years, this park was huge. It had everything. It was a theme park, water park. They used a big lake right in the middle for like boat shows and for all this kind of like water skiing. They had like Batman on a boat and through fire and fireworks. Crazy display of things. It was awesome. I liked it more than Cedar Point. It's a shame, but they shut it down. It shut down in 2007. 3 years ago, it was 2015, me and my buddy Mike Riendeau, decided that let's go check out the abandoned property. There was still the Big Dipper, which was an iconic roller coaster that had been there since like the early 1900s. Real small roller coaster, topped out at like 35 miles an hour, and it wasn't that long. It wasn't that extravagant, but it was old and it was wooden and it beat the crap out of you when you rode it. And we had heard that was the only ride remaining at Geauga Lake. So we're like, I remember riding it 100 times when I was a kid. That was my first roller coaster. It was one of my very first roller coasters, if not my first. So we meet in Aurora at a Target across the street. So we met at this Target, and our goal was to go through the woods, around the lake, through the parking lot to the front gate, over the wall, into the park. Easy as pie. I had scouted it out a couple weeks before. Me and my now wife were driving around. I'm like, I have to figure this out. So I kind of did a perimeter, looked on Google Maps. It was going to be a deal. So we parked our cars, walked down the buildings, did one of those, like, look, I'm going to run. We run like 50 yards across the thing into the woods and whistle for the other person to come. We used to do a lot of exploring back in the day, mind you. This one was very specifically awesome to us because of all the nostalgia that came with it. Okay, so we go to this place, we get through the woods, and we had a general idea of which direction to head. So we just start traipsing through the woods, talking BS and all that. Came to the clearing, great. Thought it was a parking lot, that's awesome. We start walking, making a beeline right to where we saw where the park entrance was. That was standing, there was some fence, and then the Big Dipper you could kind of see from the side of the road, but there was like a wood off area. And so we're walking across this parking lot, and we're walking, and one of us slid. And we're like, oh, that's a slick thing, careful, because it was January, like it is right now, January 11th, and it was super snowy, it's freezing cold. And so we slip, and as we slipped, we kind of pushed some of the snow away with like our movements, and we realized that we're not in the parking lot, we're in the middle of the lake, Geauga Lake. The lake, it's a huge lake, frozen lake, and there's two full-grown men standing in the middle of it. Like, do we turn around? Where's equal distance turn around to go the same way? So we're like, okay, now that we know what it is, let's take it a little slow. And I wish I could tell you that there was some kind of dramatic run through the cracked ice. There wasn't. We made it safe and sound, luckily. But it was just that feeling, the like adrenaline boost of like being on this frozen lake, and it was nuts. So we get across the frozen lake and we get to the main entrance of the place, which is all boarded up, and you kind of have flashes when you're young, now that, and this and that. So we get to the main gate and realize that if we go straight away into it, people from the road can see it. It's not like close to the road, but it's close enough where it's not blocked or anything. So like we have to go on the side, and there we found this big fence. It was probably a 15 to 20 foot fence, and the bars weren't chain link, and they were metal bars that maybe were like this far apart, maybe like 6 inches apart, thick bars, maybe like 2 inch thick bar, hundreds of them. And so what we had to do, it was slippery, which sucks, but we had to monkey bar our way up to the top, flipped over, and then down the other side, which wouldn't be a hard thing to do. The only different thing about it was cold, it was frozen, so everything was more slick. So it took us a little bit to get over. And I remember on the opposite end, we had some evergreens that were covered. Evergreens were coverage on both sides, so that was kind of a bonus thing. Once through a gate, we look around, we get our bearings, we go straight ahead. And in my mind, I don't know about Mike, but in my mind, I'm picturing the map of how the place looked. Big Dipper was there, check, and then there was like a Cadillac car, but it was like one of those wooden ships right in front of it. And then adjacent to that was one of those log rides where you sit in the big box car and it hits big splash at the very bottom. And then to that was a water park, and it was so many things were flashing in my mind because I was there when I was a kid. It was Geauga Lake, and then became Six Flags, and they made it like Looney Tunes, Batman and Superman, and they kind of shifted everything, and then it went back to Geauga Lake, and everything shifted back, and so like all these like visions popped in my head when I was a super young kid, when I was there last, when this and that was happening. Place is a wasteland, like there we could see the Big Dipper ahead of us. And that's it. We can see what the lake is. We can see where the water park is. We can see what the trees are. We see where it came from, the gate and everything. But other than that, that's it. That's all we got to work with. The water splash thing, I could tell that's where the spot it was because the way the concrete was poured, where there was that divot where the deep water would be and everything, and the track, I could see that. But that was it. It was just like flat. This you would picture any amusement park. The way to the Big Dipper. We walk and we see this old car, kind of like someone drove a car there after it had closed and like just took a sledgehammer to it. Someone threw like a big cinder block through the windshield and that was sitting in the driver's seat. We picked around that for a little bit. And best part about urban exploring, any kind of exploration like that, is just the kind of like quasi rush where we're not intending to do anything bad, but breaking and entering is bad enough. So like to get caught isn't like the end of the world, but there's still that adrenaline of like, you kind of want to experience where like you're up against the wall where someone's like showed up or they're like, this and that. I remember seeing that there was a track footprints, and I don't know if I'm making this up in my mind, but there was at least normal people footprints. I thought there was like dog footprints too, like there was like a patrol going around, and we saw that it was worn in kind of a loop to like lead on like someone was walking the perimeter, whether it was that day or the day before, who knows. But I remember seeing that. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, it would be cool if someone saw us here and we'd have to run, and we're used to urban exploring like old buildings or old this and that, where we were contained inside the building, whereas this is more like we're out in everything, and we'd have to beeline or split up, and exciting thing. Anyway, so we get to the Big Dipper and blows the control panel, and we kind of like look, and there's an old hat in there, and we're messing around with some like tools. The place has been picked clean, clearly. And we get to the actual track itself, and we walk up into the station and play with the mechanisms and everything. We're pushing buttons, and like we start walking on the track, and you see you leave the station, and then you would curve around, and there was like a little mini like Segway area before the big main hill, and then blah 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 blah. Far side of it, there was more little tracks, and so we hit those two spots. We didn't go on the big hill because it was icy, and we're in like boots, didn't have any ropes with us, so I'm like, we're not gonna slide and fall to our death, so we're just kept the spots we could. But it was just so cool walking this railing, and I had never walked on a roller coaster. I'm not sure how many of you have walked on a roller coaster, but it was the coolest thing in the world. And so we get back to the station, and we're kind of like reminiscing, and that's when it freaking hit us. The very last time that either of us, and this is my favorite part of the story, last time that either of us had been at Geauga Lake was when we had both been there together 2 years, a year before it closed, and it was in 2003 or 2004, 2005. We were still in high school, and my mom took me, my sister, and Mike to Geauga Lake for like an end of summer vacation, hurrah or whatever. And so I remember, because as soon as we got to the park, me and Mike, like, as you do, you take a beeline to the back of the park and you work your way forward. You get there at opening, you start at the back, work your way up. You're not fighting people for lines. Remember we did that. Remember we blew like $20 a person on the House of the Dead arcade game. And I especially remember that day because my mom gave me guilt later for taking me there and then not spending any time with her. But it's moms, right? But that day stuck out in my head. It hit me while we were there 2 years or 3 years ago, and I'm like, dude, it is that like Whereas like the last time we were standing in this exact spot, the park was huge. One of the biggest amusement parks or thrill parks in the world. It was so nuts. And we're standing there and all of a sudden there was nothing. Just that roller coaster. And it got real eerie. I got goosebumps right now thinking about how like eerie it was, because like vivid memories of being there that day. It was so crazy. So we walked around the Big Dipper for a little bit and then realized that was, that's all we were going to see. There's nothing more in the park to see. And there's only so much of the roller coaster we could traipse on. So we took some selfies, and we did explore some of the entrance a little bit too, which was fairly neat. It seemed like there was some repairs they did on it, but I think it was just repairs to keep people out. They sold it last year. Big Dipper tore it down, so you can't see that any longer. So I'm glad we went there, and I think, or almost 2 full years since we were on it. September 2016, they tore it down. So you're over a year and a half. All right, if you guys have any stories about your Geauga Lake visits, or if you guys explored the Big Dipper too, let me hear about it. If you're a roller coaster connoisseur, if you love old theme parks, if you know facts about Geauga Lake you want to share, comment on this video. Let me know what you think. I'm so like enthralled in the knowledge of old theme parks. They're everywhere, and they were huge for 100 years, steady, and then all of a sudden they just start dropping, and mega parks pop up. And every state has like 50 of them that there are so many stories with. There's Conneaut up north, there was Geauga Lake, there's Chippewa Lake down where we live now. Boom, 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 gone. Conneaut's still open, but it probably shouldn't be. Anyway, leave a like, comment on the video, I want to hear from you. Subscribe if you haven't yet. And we'll see you guys next time. All right, rock and roller coast. That's it. Later days.